The Human Target issue 9, Tom King writing with Greg Smallwood on the art. Definitely the main event. I think get into this week for me. Probably
Yep.
Matt too, I imagine.
Yep.
Yep.
That's what I saved for last this week.
So the premise of this issue, all on the fantastic start where he technically dies and Ice has to revive him, and the art here is great because it's just her waking up and looking up at him, and then just pages of silent art of her like checking his breath and then trying to give him resuscitation mouth to mouth.
So
just beautiful stuff.
There's not a lot of dialogue in this one. Like we get to the end and there's a bit, but there's a lot of storytelling being done with bare panels.
So, especially that first like 5 pages is almost all silent. There's a lot of narration after that, but that first 5 pages is just all silent. Yeah,
it's so well handled. You know exactly what's going on in Ice's head.
Yeah,
and then even when we start getting to the dialogue and the narration and him being revived by Dr. Midnight, it keeps going because it's one of those things that they would talk about Ernest Hemingway's writing. It's what he's not saying. That's all through this whole issue.
Oh, for sure. So the premise of this issue, once he gets resuscitated, is that he's clearly concerned that Batman's going to come for him. And that's all he's got in his head the entire issue. So no matter what Ace says to him, no matter what they're doing, where they're going, he's just always thinking about where's Batman coming from, how is he coming after me, when is he coming after me. He's next. He has to be next. And there's a great bit of the art here actually. When he wakes up and Ace like holds up his flask and says, "Don't worry, I brought this." This panel said so much to me. This idea that she's enabling him, right? Yep. The way she's only sort of half in the panel with her face feels like, even though she's smelling, it feels very like mischievous.
It's sinister. There's well, even when you get the first page and he's laying in the bed and the shadow goes over him, and like I'm like, oh, I know Batman's coming, right? It's kind of teased on the, and it's Ice that's like this shadow that's looming over him, and then that continues into the what panel you're talking about with
and obviously her frustration in this issue is that he's not telling her why they're driving in the desert or where they're going. He's just running. And again, there's just this great panel. It's like it's when we skip to them in the car, the second page of that, where she's looking over at him, like the expression on her face as she's like like, I mean, I'm going to talk about the fact that you technically died this morning, or are we just driving? So, and all he's thinking the entire time is Batman's coming. Oh, it's him. They go to a diner. Oh, that's him in disguise. He's at the diner, and he goes up and talks to this guy and ends up getting punched and punching back and knocking this guy out.
What I like is like, yeah, that's him. I know it's him. The way that he's sitting, he's just missing the match, but the glasses are a dead giveaway. And
it's not him. Right? It's just some dude.
He thinks it's Matches Malone, so he does this whole thing, and there's an homage to the Guy Gardner One Punch, where the who he thinks is Matches Malone hits him first. He absorbs it, knocks him out with one punch, and then realizes that it's not Batman because the punch didn't hurt. Which was a real fun, And what's great about this issue too is like it's a tonal shift from what we've seen with Christopher Chance, right? Is this guy is so confident and competent, and he's always in control of the situation. And here, for the first time, like in 9 issues, he is almost like this paranoid maniac.
Oh yeah, like, and what's so great about it is that it all builds up to his final realization at the end, which is the perfect like payoff to like all of this paranoia. He punches this guy out. Ace has to apologize and pay for like the coffee. And, like, they go. There's all these close-ups of the eyes. He eventually swerves the car off the road, and they actually end up walking through the desert. And she's trying to talk to him repeatedly throughout this, and he just doesn't want to. And is shockingly not that mad at him, despite what he's doing and what he's up to. But again, they kind of bond. There's a moment where she says, "I'm kind of afraid of what I could be." He's like, "Yeah, I'm kind of afraid of you too." And they're having this heart to heart. She builds an ice house in the middle of the desert for them to stay in overnight, and they go in, and she's asking more questions, and he's like I've got to like pay attention. I've got to like do this because of what's happened with Guy. Like, there's someone who's better than me, and I have to do this. And like she asks, "Who's better than you?" And he just kind of deflects again. And she's like, look, I just saved your life. You've been lying to me, because he finally admits this issue that he's dying to her.
Right.
It's like, so you're dying in 4 days. Just answer the effing question. And he just turns and says, Batman's better than me. And she just has this look. And then the second panel is her going, F or whatever she's saying, behind the censored bubble. I love that reaction, because it's like all of a sudden everything he's been doing makes complete sense to her.
Yeah.
And she didn't think anything could. But the idea that Batman's coming for him, wait a minute.
And that's why he's so paranoid. He's like, Batman's going to know that we killed Guy Gardner. Because he'll see through everything. He's like, I'm good, but Batman's better. Yeah,
we faked that message to convince people he was still alive, but somewhere else. Yeah, Batman's going to see through that.
And when she builds the ice house, he's even talking about, it's like, well, this is good. We'll see him coming from wherever. He can't get the drop on us in the middle of the desert, and he's still so fixated on Batman catching him. And then finally he gets some rest. And is this when they have the discussion about how they got their names, right?
Yeah, somewhere around here, yeah.
Yeah, that she's like Ice. It's just kind of it's a man name. It's kind of what I do. But Chance is like, yeah, but it's kind of nice. It's straight to the point. She goes, why are you the human target? And he talks about how he was always the first to volunteer, right? So in this training, whatever this training he went through. When they needed to test anything, he was the first one to volunteer. And I think that's a tell, too, to the story, right? Is like, he is the human target. And I feel like this isn't going to plan. Not necessarily as part of the plan, but it's going to end up paying off for him. And this is his big gamble now. Because I feel like we're in the end game. Because of what is kind of revealed here at the end.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And, there's so much good sequential art. I talked about the opening pages, but like, even when they're in the ice house and he's sitting down, the page that ends with him saying, I love you and I effed up. The way he sits down and she looks over and then puts her head on his shoulder. Like, there's so much good sequential art where you just feel the beats of the scene playing out as they're talking. And then she invites him up to bed, and like, he's just said he loves her to her, and they're having sex in this ice house that she's made for him. And then the final revelation, which paints a cloud over how genuine Ice is being with him, which is something we've been, questioning since the start. Like, this feels sweet and genuine, but is there the chance that she is the femme fatale and that she's somehow behind a lot of this? And the realization he comes to is that all issue is like, no, he's coming. Batman's coming. He's there. He'll come from the sky. Maybe he'll come from the road. If he's in his car, I'll see the car. And he keeps like, he's like, we're in a desert. We'll see him coming from any direction. He'll have to come up and ring the doorbell. We'll know he's coming. And then he finally wakes up after all this at the end, in the middle of the night, and says, no, he's not coming. And if he's not coming, then why is he not coming? It can only be one reason, is that he saw all this going on and decided that he didn't have to, get involved. And if he's not getting involved, it can only mean one thing, that Guy Gardner's not dead.
Yeah.
That there wasn't a murder, and that's why Batman's not after me. And the final panel, as he says this, is he's looking over at the sleeping Ice, suggesting that if that was a fake death, if this wasn't real, then she's involved in it being fake.
Yep.
She had to have helped fake it.
And this is, so again, with him, this wasn't part of the plan. He was getting played, and now, in the next 3 issues, we're going to see how he puts it all together and, lets her know that he knows, and becomes, now he's the real human target, right? Like, it's taken 9 issues to get to the point where he's the actual human target. It wasn't the Lex Luthor thing. It's going to be dealing with Ice or whoever else is responsible for this.
And I'm still excited because I still think that somehow this is going to all turn out to be a play by him because he's the human target. Somehow, some way. And part of me also thinks that if we're revealing this at the end of issue 9 and there's 3 issues left, it's still possible that she has real feelings for him, and it still might turn around into something sweet. But I don't know. Right. But the obvious read at this point is that her and Guy are setting him up, and that, like, this faking Guy's death before he dies is like, she maybe already knew that Chance was dying, and the idea being that he'll stop investigating because he thinks he's already killed Guy because Guy was behind it, so he's already dealt with the murderer, and therefore after Chance dies, Guy can come back out and no harm done.
But then I'm thinking he's so good at his job, right? Is that they faked this fake call to Rocket Red from an alternate dimension, and now even Rocket Red believes that's where Guy Gardner is, and now I feel like Ice is going, oh man, are we gonna get it? That's what the F's about. where she lets out that when he thinks that Batman's after him. You know, it's not necessarily that Batman's after him, but she's like, oh man, he's, you know, he's farther along in this than we thought. So,
no, I kind of read the F as just a more genuine, like not so much that she's genuinely reacting to the Batman line, but more that like if she's playing the character here, that's just the reaction she thinks she should give. Is you know.
Sure, it could be that, but yeah, it's getting very pulpy in the way that I like pulpy, where there's going to be double turns and backstabbing and stuff that we thought we had figured out, that there's going to be a thing that we missed.
I think this, along with Rorschach especially, King's done such a good job of like keeping us on the hook for the mystery and like where the story is going in a way that I think is so compelling issue to issue. And we've had such a great time talking about it issue to issue. And here it's kind of like propping these things in front of us, like, well, Ace is the obvious, like it's going to turn out that she's behind the you know, the poison in some way and whatever, but to hit this point here where he realizes this, and the same issue that he's told her that he loves her has a bit of a gut punch element to it in a way that, you know, I find a lot in noir when you actually do it in a movie, it feels a bit phony, where I don't really feel the romance between the character, but because this is a serialized thing over 12 issues, I feel it a lot more. I feel a lot, and maybe it's because we're hearing his inner monologue a lot more, I don't know.
Yeah, it feels genuine, especially when we got to that fire issue, and that was basically a test, and he passed the test, and you know, I like to think that he's not Batman where he has a plan for everything. But he's very good at thinking on his feet. I
think he likes to think he's got a plan for everything like Batman. Yeah. But at the same time acknowledges that he's not as good.
Right. But what I mean is, like, I don't think that was him putting a play over on fire. I think he really
not at all.
Does think he has these feelings for Ice. You know, and this is where a lot of the issue's coming from now.
I mean, I think a lot of the story with him and Ace is him, like, early on in the first half especially, was him trying to resist the feelings, because his reaction to when he'd feel something when she'd come back and they'd sleep together or whatever in those early issues, it was always, shit, I feel these things, or shit, like I've tried to resist the spell but it's not working, like I'm in head deep now, you know, so
it's man. Again, I liked Rorschach a lot, but with each issue of Human Target, this is becoming my favorite Tom King thing ever.
I mean, I don't know how to compare them at this point, but like, yeah, it's just, you know, Danger Street is, you know,
it could be right
high up in the anticipated list now after all this.
And also because we know how familiar Tom King is with Batman, the fact that this entire issue he writes about Batman but doesn't mention him until, you know, the back third.
I love that he never shows up though. I love that Batman's this specter like weighing down in the entire issue, but it's always just in Chancy's head and he never actually appears.
But you still feel that Batman presence though, even though he's not there.
Yeah.
So
like, and I would use a wrestling term. King used this issue to sell Batman in a way it's so strong, in a way that is so effective despite never having him appear in a single panel. That is very effective.
Yeah, for sure. So
it put Batman over in a big way, so very good. The art is phenomenal. All these sequential moments in the art, the reactions, the glances that Ace is giving him, and like that one where she's only half in the panel, which feels kind of like, oh, is that a little sinister? The way she's kind of like almost a devil on his shoulder, like encouraging his bad habits kind of thing. Yeah, there's stuff there. There's stuff to be said. So, all right, what are you giving Human Target issue 9?
9.5.
I agree, 9.5. That's where I'm at with it. It's fantastic.